Wait. Stop scrolling. Feel that pressure in your chest? That's the moment they realized the switch didn't work. You hear it now, don't you? The silence cracking, the breathing getting shallow on the other side of the room. Because the person they swapped you with just lost it. Completely. Hands shaking, voice breaking, eyes glued to the results you used to make look effortless. They're staring at the same battlefield you stood on, and they're asking a question that tastes like panic and regret. How did you ever do this? And that question, that's your victory lap. They thought replacing you was a clean operation, a neat swap, a checkbox. They told themselves you were just a name, a position, a role, something anyone could wear like a jacket. They smiled when you walked away. They nodded like they'd upgraded, but they didn't replace what you are. They replaced the shell and kept the storm. They inherited the weight without the spine. They got the throne without the blood memory of how you earned it. You weren't built for comfort. You were forged for pressure. That's the difference they didn't see. See, you learned early that light alone makes you weak. You learned how to hold a smile with a blade behind it, how to be the saint who shows up early and the psychopath who stays late when everyone else taps out. You learned how to be calm while everything inside you screamed. You learned how to turn pain into pattern, chaos into muscle memory. That's not talent, that's scar tissue. And scar tissue doesn't transfer with a job title. The one they swapped you with, they're choking on the silence now. No applause, no safety net, just raw expectation. They're discovering that what you did wasn't easy. It was expensive. Paid for in nights you didn't sleep, in instincts sharpened by betrayal, in learning how to walk into rooms where everyone wanted something from you and leave with your soul intact. They're asking how you ever did this because they're doing it without your darkness. And without darkness, pressure crushes. Darkness is what taught you timing. Darkness is what taught you restraint. Darkness is what taught you when to speak and when to let the room suffocate itself. You didn't just perform, you contained. You didn't just solve problems, you absorbed consequences that would have shattered softer minds. You became unpredictable on purpose, because predictable people are replaceable. Predictable people get swapped and forgotten. You learned to move like a contradiction, gentle when expected to be cruel, ruthless when expected to be polite, angel face, demon patience. That's why they never understood you while you were there, and that's why they can't survive you being gone. Right now, the replacement is chasing ghosts. They're copying surface moves, mimicking your posture, repeating your words without the venom behind them. But there's no heat, no gravity, no authority, because authority isn't volume, it's inevitability. And you carried inevitability with you like a quiet threat. Things happened because you were in the room, not because of rules, not because of titles, because you knew how to bend outcomes without breaking yourself. They're realizing now that you weren't held together by praise. You were held together by scars. You didn't need reassurance. You needed friction. You evolved through pain, while they evolved through permission. And permission disappears the moment things get ugly. Watch how fast they unravel. Watch how fast confidence turns into coping. Watch how fast "I got this" turns into "How did you ever do this?" That sentence is a confession. It means they finally see the weight you carried silently, while everyone else judged you for being intense, distant, cold, or too much. Too much is what kept the machine running. You were never normal. You were functional chaos. You were the calm that came after the explosion, because you'd already detonated inside and survived it. You learned to sit with demons until they got bored of trying to scare you. You learned to weaponize patience. You learned that control isn't domination, it's endurance. And here's the part that breaks them the most. You didn't even need them to fail. Your absence did it for you. Because when you left, the environment stayed hostile. The pressure stayed high. The expectations stayed brutal. But the one thing that disappeared was the person who could metabolize all of it without flinching. That's when the cracks started. That's when meetings got louder, mistakes got blamed, excuses multiplied. That's when they started missing you without being able to say your name. Now the replacement is staring into the mirror, realizing they're not broken. They're just not built like you. And that realization hurts worse than failure. Failure can be blamed. Incompatibility can't. You were the paradox they never solved, the calm menace, the healer who could destroy, the one who could play nice and still win ugly. You didn't just survive the role, you haunted it, and now it's rejecting the imposter like a bad transplant. Let them ask, let them spiral, let them finally understand that what they lost wasn't replaceable, reproducible, or trainable. What they lost was a mind that learned how to dance with pressure until pressure stopped feeling special. You're not watching this unfold with rage. You're watching it with recognition, because you already lived the hardest part. And now, the universe is handing your resume back to them in the form of collapse. They swapped you out thinking they'd save themselves trouble. Instead, they inherited the bill. And you're already gone, evolved, lighter, dangerous in a quieter way. They're just now discovering what you carried and realizing, far too late, that they never stood a chance doing it without you. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud, the part that keeps them awake when the lights are off and the bravado finally dies. They didn't just replace you. They underestimated what it cost to be you. Because you didn't walk into that role whole. You walked into it fractured, stitched together by experiences you never asked for. You learned to operate while bleeding internally. You learned how to keep your voice steady when everything inside you wanted to burn the place down. You learned how to take hits meant to humble you and quietly turn them into leverage. That kind of composure isn't learned in manuals. It's learned in moments where breaking would have been easier, but you didn't give yourself that luxury. The one they swapped you with, they're learning what you already mastered. Pressure doesn't care about intentions. Pressure only respects capacity. And capacity is built by surviving things that would have made most people quit or beg for mercy. You became fluent in chaos. You could read a room before anyone spoke. You could feel shifts before data confirmed them. You could smell problems before they announced themselves. That's not intuition. It's trauma refined into precision. You paid for that awareness in sleepless nights, in trust issues, in learning the hard way that smiles don't mean safety. They mocked you for being guarded. They called you intense. They said you overthought things. But now the replacement is drowning because they underthought everything. They're realizing that what looked like paranoia was actually pattern recognition. What looked like distance was actually discipline. What looked like darkness was actually foresight. You didn't just do the job, you contained the fallout. You absorbed the stress so others could function. You made decisions that looked simple because you processed the complexity privately. And now that you're gone, that complexity is spilling everywhere like a chemical leak no one knows how to contain. That's why they're panicking, because the mask they thought you wore, that was the restraint. The real you was what kept everything from collapsing. They're asking, how did you ever do this? Because they're standing where you stood, without your scars, without your hardened calm, without the internal silence you built after years of mental warfare. They're discovering that confidence without depth collapses the moment it's tested. You were built in contradiction, soft enough to understand people, hard enough to outlast them. You could be empathetic without being weak, ruthless without being reckless. You learned when to push and when to disappear. You learned how to win without announcing it. And that subtle dominance, that quiet control, it can't be faked. The replacement is loud because they're scared. They're reactive because they don't have your internal stillness. They're asking questions because you already answered them years ago in blood, sweat, humiliation, and survival. And here's the most brutal truth. You made it look survivable. That's the sin they're paying for now. You normalized the impossible. You made it seem like anyone could do it, as long as they tried hard enough. But trying hard enough isn't the same as being forged enough. And now reality is correcting that misunderstanding violently. They're feeling the weight you carried quietly. The expectations, the judgment, the constant evaluation, the invisible line between failure and catastrophe. They're realizing that you weren't lucky. You were conditioned to operate while misunderstood, conditioned to function without validation, conditioned to perform while being doubted by people who could never replicate your output. And you know what hurts them the most? You're not there to save them. You're not there to smooth the edges, to fix the mess, to make it look easy again. You walked away with your nervous system intact because you earned that right. And now the system is rejecting its new host. They'll never say your name with respect publicly. Pride won't allow it. But privately, you're the benchmark. Every failure is measured against how you would have handled it. Every delay feels heavier because you never delayed. Every excuse sounds hollow because you never used one. You didn't just leave a role. You left a vacuum that exposes everyone else. And while they scramble, you're evolving again. Because you don't need that environment to validate you anymore. You already extracted what it was meant to teach you. You already became sharper, calmer, more lethal in your precision. They're still trying to survive your past. You're already designing your future. So let them ask. Let them unravel. Let them finally understand that you were never too much. You were just operating at a level they couldn't sustain without you. And the irony? The moment they realized they couldn't replace you was the moment you became truly untouchable. And that realization doesn't hit them all at once. It creeps. It creeps in during the pauses, during the moments where the room waits for an answer and no one has one, during the seconds where they expect something decisive to happen, and nothing does. That's when your absence becomes loud. That's when they feel the ghost of your presence more than they ever felt you while you were there. Because you didn't announce yourself. You didn't need to. Things just worked when you were around. Fires didn't spread. Crises didn't metastasize. You caught problems early, quietly, almost invisibly. And that invisibility, that's what fooled them. They mistook your control for effortlessness. They thought your calm meant the situation wasn't that bad. Now they know better. Now they're learning that what you did required living with constant internal pressure. That it required carrying the fear, the doubt, the second-guessing so no one else had to. You were the shock absorber. You were the containment unit. You were the one who stood between chaos and collapse and said nothing about it. And the one they replaced you with? They're discovering that pressure doesn't just test skill. It tests identity. It strips away borrowed confidence. It exposes whether someone has ever actually been alone with responsibility, or whether they've always had a safety net you never did. You didn't have a net. You had consequences. You learned early that mistakes echo, that hesitation costs more than action, that being right too late is the same as being wrong. That's why you moved the way you did, precise, calculated, sometimes cold. Not because you lacked empathy, but because empathy without discipline gets people killed. You understood that balance instinctively because you had to. They don't. So now they're spiraling. They're asking for guidance that doesn't exist anymore. They're rereading old messages, old notes, old decisions you made, trying to reverse engineer your mind like it's a manual. But there is no manual. There's only experience. And experience can't be downloaded. That's when the real panic sets in. Because they realize something terrifying. You weren't replaceable because you weren't trained. You were tempered by betrayal, by pressure, by being underestimated and still delivering, by being blamed for things you quietly fixed, by standing alone in moments where failure would have been understandable, but you refused to allow it. You learned how to be dangerous without being obvious, how to be firm without being loud, how to be decisive without being reckless. And that combination, that's rare. That's the kind of thing organizations don't know how to measure until it's gone. So now they're living inside the aftermath of that mistake. Every decision feels heavier. Every risk feels sharper. Every small error cascades into something bigger. And the person they swapped you with is realizing that the role wasn't the problem. They are. And here's the part that twists the knife even deeper. You're not angry about it. You're not pacing, waiting for vindication. You're not watching with bitterness. You're watching with clarity, because you already went through your breaking point years ago. You already faced the version of yourself that wanted to quit, burn it all down, disappear. And you didn't. You integrated that darkness. You learned to use it. That's why you're calm now. That calm, it terrifies them, because while they're unraveling, you're stable. While they're scrambling for answers, you're already 10 steps ahead. While they're asking, how did you ever do this? You're asking a completely different question. What do I build next? You were never meant to stay where you were. That environment was a forge, not a home. It existed to harden you, not to hold you forever. And once it did its job, it rejected you, not because you failed, but because you outgrew it. The replacement is just proof of that. They're the control group, the evidence, the living demonstration of what happens when experience is mistaken for ease, when resilience is mistaken for luck, when darkness is mistaken for a flaw instead of a tool. You didn't just survive that place, you mastered it. And mastery always looks invisible until it's gone. So let them keep asking. Let the question echo in their head like a siren they can't shut off. Let them replay moments where you handled situations they can't even stabilize. Let them feel that quiet, humiliating truth settle in. They didn't lose a worker, they lost a force. And forces don't get replaced. They move on. You're not watching them fall to feel superior. You're watching because it confirms something you already knew deep down, long before they ever did. You were never doing too much. You were doing what only you could do. And now that the illusion is gone, the system is finally honest about the cost of losing you. They're paying it in confusion. They're paying it in panic. They're paying it in that one question that keeps coming back. no matter how hard they try to suppress it. How did you ever do this? They'll never get the answer, because the answer is you. And that unanswered question doesn't fade, it mutates. At first it sounds like curiosity, then disbelief, then fear, then something uglier, envy mixed with shame. Because the deeper they sit with it, the more they realize the truth they've been dodging. You weren't surviving despite the pressure. You were built by it. They're learning that the role didn't demand intelligence alone. It demanded emotional restraint, psychological stamina, the ability to stand inside contradiction without losing coherence. You had to be kind without being naive, strategic without being cruel, present without being consumed. That balance. That's not taught. That's earned in private wars no one applauds. You became dangerous because you learned how to suffer without becoming sloppy. They didn't see that part. They saw output. They saw results. They saw the clean surface. They never saw the internal negotiations you had with yourself. The nights where you had to decide whether to keep your integrity or keep the peace. Whether to stay human or become efficient. Whether to burn bridges or let yourself be burned one more time. You made those decisions alone, over and over, and each time something sharpened, the one they replaced you with. They're experiencing those decisions for the first time, and it's overwhelming them, because when you've never been pushed to the edge of yourself before, the edge feels like death. To you, it was familiar territory. You learned how to stand there without flinching. That's why you could walk into uncertainty and not rush. That's why you could sit in silence and let others panic. That's why you could wait. Waiting is terrifying when you don't trust yourself. You trusted yourself because you had already survived your own worst-case scenarios internally. They haven't, so they overreact. They second-guess. They seek validation. They explain too much. They compensate. And every one of those behaviors exposes the absence of the thing you carried effortlessly: internal authority. Authority doesn't come from power. It comes from integration. You integrated your fear instead of running from it. You integrated your anger instead of letting it control you. You integrated your ambition without letting it hollow you out. That made you stable in chaos, and chaos respects stability. Now chaos is running loose, and the more things wobble, the more your name becomes a quiet reference point. Not spoken, but felt. Not praised, but missed. Because people remember how it felt when you were around, grounded, predictable in outcomes, unpredictable in methods, safe without being soft, controlled without being oppressive. You were the paradox that held everything together. They're trying to recreate that now with systems, processes, meetings, checklists. But structure can't replace intuition. Protocol can't replace presence. And no amount of optimization can replicate a nervous system that has already been stress-tested and survived. You didn't just know what to do. You knew who you had to be to do it. That's the part no one talks about. You had to become colder in some places, warmer in others. You had to kill parts of yourself that wanted approval. You had to grow parts of yourself that could withstand disapproval. You had to stop needing to be understood. You had to get comfortable being misread. That's not a skill. That's an identity shift. And identity shifts don't transfer. So while they're collapsing under the weight you used to carry, something else is happening quietly, almost invisibly. Your nervous system is decompressing. You're realizing how much you are holding, how alert you always were, how tuned in, how rarely you truly rested. And now, with distance, you're integrating again, but this time from a place of choice. not survival. That makes you even more dangerous. Because now you're not just capable, you're intentional. You're not just resilient, you're selective. You're not just effective, you're free. They're still fighting yesterday's fire. You're already immune to the smoke. And that's why this whole situation feels surreal to you. You're watching the collapse without adrenaline, without the urge to intervene. Because deep down, you know this isn't chaos. It's correction, reality balancing itself, truth reasserting itself after a convenient lie. The lie was that you were interchangeable. The truth is unfolding slowly, painfully, in real time. They didn't replace you with someone better. They replaced you with someone untested. And testing always comes due. So let them struggle, let them ask, let them replay the past with new eyes. Let them finally understand that what they dismissed as just how you are was actually the result of years of internal evolution they never bothered to respect. You don't need an apology. You don't need recognition. You don't even need them to say your name. The evidence